A tragedy in Texas we're following tonight, where at least 18 children have been killed in a shooting at an elementary school. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Texas State Senator Roland Gutierrez says at least 3 adults were also killed. This happened in Uvalde, about 85 miles west of San Antonio.
CBS 8's Jesse Pagan is in our newsroom tonight with an update and what President Biden is saying to Americans. Jesse?
Yeah, Marcella, Carlo, the president just spoke minutes ago. He expressed his condolences to the city of Uvalde and the families of the victims. He also took a moment to essentially chide his fellow lawmakers and ask when the country would stand up to the gun lobby. As you can imagine, this is the time when families are finding out their kids or loved ones are gone as they show up to the hospital or the reunification center nearby the scene. The number stands at 21 people dead, including 18 kids. CBS News reports the shooter might have also killed his grandmother and shot a border police agent in the head. The shooter is dead. Officials say they think officers responding shot him. This all started around 11:30 Texas time this morning. Officials say their preliminary investigation shows 18-year-old Salvador Ramos drove his truck to the school, abandoned it, then went inside with a gun and possibly a rifle. Vice President Kamala Harris spoke at a gala she was already scheduled to attend, urging other lawmakers to have the courage to make policies around gun control. Meantime, as we mentioned, President Biden spoke from the White House, saying he learned of the shooting on Air Force One heading back from a trip to Asia.
What struck me on that 17-hour flight, what struck me was these kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. Why? They have mental health problems. They have domestic disputes in other countries. They have people who are lost.
Now, we know President Biden has already talked with Texas Governor Greg Abbott earlier this afternoon and offered any federal help the state may need during the investigation. Speaking of, several agencies, including the FBI, are getting in on this. Meantime, as you can expect, vigils and church services are already happening in Uvalde. Carlo?
Thank you, Jesse. And we'll bring you the latest on this story, including another update from Texas that's coming up tonight at 6:30.
California is reporting what may be the first case of monkeypox virus in our state. The patient in Sacramento County recently traveled to Europe. Giacomo Luca has more tonight from our sister station in Sacramento on what we're learning and who may be at risk.
The individual is in isolation, is not hospitalized, and is doing well. Sacramento County is coordinating with CDPH and CDC to identify and evaluate close contacts.
This comes as more than 100 cases of the rare, sometimes fatal disease have been confirmed globally.
It is a rare disease in the United States, and also that all the cases so far have had mild infections.
And no deaths have been reported. Monkeypox is a virus described as a milder form of smallpox. It's spread from person to person, animals, or direct contact with the virus. Symptoms often begin with fever and headache and develop into a body rash with lesions that can last weeks. Still, Sacramento County health officials say the risk to the general public remains low.
It's important, though, for people that do fit the history, especially of travel to Europe, and are exhibiting some of the symptoms, especially the rash, that they seek care.
Monkeypox does not occur naturally in the U.S., but cases associated with international travel or importing animals from areas where the disease is more common have happened. Common hygiene measures like hand washing can prevent the virus, and the CDC is urging healthcare providers to be on the lookout for rash-based illnesses.
Right now, the San Diego Unified School District is deciding whether or not to require students to mask up once again. Students could have to wear masks as soon as tomorrow, but district officials say it all depends on the number of COVID cases. The Board of Education is also working to decide if they'll put a mandate in place and whether to delay the vaccine mandate until July of next year. According to a letter sent to families, schools will require masking indoors if certain case numbers are reached. Some parents are not happy about this.
Well, it is absolutely unacceptable for San Diego Unified to be forcing masking at this point. We see, all across the state and the country, people getting back to normal.
It could be some time before a decision is reached, since the board will be hearing public comments.
Living in San Diego was expensive before the recent spike in inflation, but now many people who never needed financial help are finding they need assistance now. As CBS 8's Steve Price reports, food banks around the county are seeing this firsthand with a new spike in users.
Gas prices, rent, food at the store, everything is getting more expensive these days, forcing families to make some really tough choices. Food banks across our county say they are seeing a rise in first-time users like students here at Grossmont College. Jacob McDermott works at Gizmo's Kitchen, the free food bank at Grossmont College. He knows it's an important job because not all that long ago, he came here for help.
So being able to access food right away, it was very helpful in my success because I didn't have to stress where my next meal was coming from.
Gizmo's hands out over 4,000 meals during the school year.
There's some students who struggle with housing issues. Also, there's students who may be coming from a background like former foster youth who struggle with lower income.
Gizmo's gets donations from several organizations, including Feeding San Diego, which has handed out over 3.7 million pounds of food since July 1st.
And just last month, we saw a 20% increase in April from the participation of people that came out in March.
But Dana Williams says they purposely don't track the families at their drive-through donation events, don't ask for any ID, because they don't want to discourage families who may be embarrassed to participate.
Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength, because it takes a lot to be able to say that I need help.
Gizmo's also gets food from the San Diego Food Bank, where unfortunately they don't see the spike in need ending anytime soon.
Food banks expect the need to rise, not only over the summer, but throughout the year.
CBS 8 is a proud sponsor of the San Diego Food Bank's Nourishing Neighbors Summer Food Drive, which is going on through the end of the month. You can help out by making a food or cash donation at any of the county's 72 Vons and Albertson stores.
When school ends and summer begins, those families are going to need our help.
By the way, Jacob coming back to Gizmo's is a very common occurrence. Food banks say many volunteers and donors are people who once needed their services and return to show their appreciation. In El Cajon, Steve Price, CBS 8.
Earlier this afternoon, local leaders met to discuss abortion rights in San Diego. Abortion remains legal in our state, and local leaders want to make sure it continues to be that way. They're calling on the state to add the right to choose whether or not to give birth to California's Constitution. This comes as state lawmakers look to make California a sanctuary state for women seeking an abortion. Meanwhile, this afternoon, the City Council declared San Diego a safe city for women's access to abortion. The resolution passed unanimously. Abortion rights supporters believe this move makes San Diego the first city to protect reproductive health care and a woman's right to abortion. The Supreme Court is expected to make a decision soon overturning Roe versus Wade. If that happens, the issue of abortion will be sent back to each individual state.
Today, San Diego City Council voted to change the city's scooter ordinance. The changes come as the city is fighting several lawsuits over scooters and the city's management of them. Under the new guidelines, the city will reduce the number of scooter companies and the number of scooters and e-bikes allowed on city streets. The changes also aim to keep scooters off of sidewalks and into the parking corrals. And finally, the changes will make sure scooter companies and not the city are liable for any lawsuits. For more on the changes as well as the status of the lawsuits, you can click on this story on our website, cbs8.com. California could become the first state to hold big social media platforms accountable for hooking children. Lawmakers passed the bill out of the Assembly yesterday, and now it's headed to the Senate. Political reporter Morgan Reiner joins us now with what recourse parents could have.
Only if a child is harmed because of social media addiction can a parent or the Attorney General sue. Now, harmed can mean either physically or emotionally.
Although not a kid legally, Larissa May is the first to admit she used to fit into the category of being harmed by social media.
I had spent my entire college career figuring out how to build a social media platform following. And I became so addicted to technology until it got to a point where I was suicidal.
In psychiatric care, she said she was asked about alcohol, drugs, and friendship circles, but not about the 14 hours she used to spend online a day.
And I saw that there wasn't a solution to teach these kids, me at that time, how to thrive on these platforms as opposed to being hurt and broken and ultimately losing our life. So I made it my mission to do that.
She decided to share the half you don't see on social media.
The platforms are not built for us to have control, but at the end of the day, we do have power to develop positive habits in the same way that we can develop habits with our nutrition and our fitness.
As the founder of Half the Story, she testified in the California Assembly in favor of AB 2408. The bill only applies to companies earning at least $100 million in revenue annually. Companies found in violation could face penalties of $25,000 per violation or up to $250,000 per violation if it's done knowingly.
It would be the first in the nation state legislation that would hold tech companies accountable. Our hope is that if we can pass this and get it through in California, the chances of this being adopted in other states around the United States are much higher.
So how does a company avoid penalties? If they remove addictive features by April 1st, or if the company conducts regular audits to identify and remove addictive features. The bill would not apply to streaming services like Netflix or Hulu.
The bill is bipartisan, authored by both a Republican and a Democratic lawmaker. But some business groups argue that if this bill does become law, that social media companies are just going to stop operating for kids altogether in California.